Very good. Commissioner.
Good afternoon.
Good to see you again. We're in your hands.
Oh,
welcome.
Thank you. I'm sorry I'm not with you today, Mr. Chairman. I'm actually in Marlborough, where I've been looking at wilding pines, and I hope one day I can talk to you about that, because your committee's got some serious fiscal risks coming your way from wilding pines. But don't let me divert you. It's a much more interesting topic, I feel.
We look forward to that presentation.
Look, you've heard this from others, but I just want to underline the extraordinarily broad drafting. Any direct or indirect environmental consideration. So lenders are somehow supposed to just ignore any front, anything on the environmental front at all. Now, I just want to read one sentence from my written submission. That's to say that environmental risks are just that. They are risks, not moralizing. Environmental risks entail valid reasons for lenders to decline to lend. Now, if you want to understand what risks we're talking about, there's a handy little table at the bottom of page 2 of my submission, which breaks it out. And it's not just one monolithic thing, there's a whole variety of risks there. But one of them, you'll see, chronic longer-term shifts in climate patterns. And that can mean that a whole series of activities that we can do now and rely on being able to do may not be possible in the future, whether it's living in a house in a flood stream, whether it's living on a coast which is going to be eroding or whatever. Now, the only point I want to make before asking if you've got any questions is simply this. I want to remind this committee, hearing this evidence on this bill, that it has issued a report, an inquiry into climate adaptation. And 2 of your recommendations, you simply have to have regard to. You cannot recommend this bill proceed because it flies 180 degrees against your own advice as a committee. Let me read it out. Allowing asset prices to better reflect long-term natural hazard risk. The more that asset and insurance prices reflect risk, the more efficient outcomes will be. This bill asks you to ignore the accurate pricing of risks, and you will get inefficient outcomes. You recommended that we should be minimizing moral hazard. Situations should be avoided where property owners are disincentivized to manage risk because they don't face the full costs of risks materializing. Now, if you decide to exclude any reference to environmental risks, as they relate, for instance, to adaptation, you are effectively saying that people should be shielded from the consequences of risks, and that'll have to be picked up by society. It might be picked up through higher premiums, ultimately picked up by taxpayers. So very simply, the bill, certainly in its present drafting, flies completely contrary to the advice that this committee has given to the government and to the House. And for that reason, it should be withdrawn. Thank you.
Okay, very good. Mr. Foster.
Yeah, Simon, nice to see you there, and thanks for the comments about wilding pines. We'll look forward to more on that. But I would have thought that actual physical risk to a property, if you're thinking about financing it, insuring it, whatever it might be, is a real financial risk. I mean, yes, it's an environmental risk, but it's also a real financial risk. And I don't see why that is not perfectly well captured in saying you don't want to insure, you don't want to finance, whatever it might be, a property that you think will be likely to be, damaged by flood or whatever else it might be.
Well, you need to look at the drafting of your bill, I think, Mr. Foster, because you've left that open for debate. And as one of your previous submitters said, you're going to have to sort this out in the courts. Either it's going to be one or it's going to be the other. The question I'd ask is, well, where do you draw that line? How much of a risk? You might have a view that, oh, that's too far in the distance. Or you might have a view that, oh, we're not really too worried about climate mitigation risk. We'll allow adaptation risk. I mean, you're sitting there, it seems to me, trying to tell investors, trying to tell those who lend and insurers what they should and shouldn't take account of, but there is no clarity around that. I'm sure there will be environmental risks you could fit into the wording of your bill, but it will ultimately end up being decided by courts. And I don't think the financial insurance industry would have any difficulty showing that a large number of issues under policy and regulatory risk, why should they not be able to take account of the policy and regulatory risks that flow from changing governments? They've got to look beyond elections. They can't run their lives in 3-year tranches. They have to take a view. Is climate going to be a serious risk, for instance? Is water going to be a serious risk? We've decided we're going to err on the side of having to face the fact that in the future people will have to do something. So therefore, we adjust our lending accordingly, or we adjust our insurance cover accordingly. I'm sorry, just from a legislative point of view, and you've heard from the previous submitters who really know a great deal more about this than me, this is not the sort of drafting we should be putting on the statute book if you want clarity for commercial certainty.
I'll just follow up on another question. Yeah, at what point does do you get to the place where the institution, the banking institution, insurance institution, is actually effectively making the decision and forcing the result rather than it being a result of an environmental situation? The one I particularly note was around the concerns of the Motor Trades Association, where they're saying that some of them are being told they are not going to be able to get finance. In fact, they are having their finance withdrawn over the next 5 years to 2030. That will be the financial institutions causing the collapse of a particular industry were that to be followed through, rather than any particular real external environmental or financial situation.
Well, in that case, I suspect that what financial institutions are looking at is not so much environmental risk, but the fact that there are technological risks. And you have to, if you're in the business of lending to people who are in the business of fossil combustion engines, how long are they going to be in business? How much capital are you going to tie up there when, if a switch to electric vehicles means that a certain type of technology and the skills associated with it and the capital that's invested is going to be less used? At a certain point, you've got to make a commercial risk judgment there. But to be told by a bill, oh, you can't think about that. No, you might say, well, no, the wording can allow that. But
yes, it would.
But yeah. So essentially, the disagreement between us is that you're using very, very broad language and then saying, let's see where it lands. Let's see where it lands, which is, I think, a legally very uncertain way to do things. I think you need to tighten this up very, very significantly, which then brings you back into a world where governments say, we've decided this technology is no longer going to be around and that one isn't. Governments can't determine those things, markets do. And lenders have to look at where markets are going. And some of them will say, no, we'll hang in there for longer. We think there's some business to be made here. He's going to stay in business longer than that institution thinks. This is a commercial decision. You don't need a statute to start trying to help make those decisions for them.
Okay.
I will leave that one there because
I think we will leave that one there, and perhaps His Worship could take the Right Honourable Mr. Upton out for dinner one night in Wellington and support the Wellington economy and work through these issues. I don't know if you agree on much, but thank you so much, Commissioner, for coming in via Zoom, and thank you, members. And that concludes the hearings for today. We'll have some next week. Thank you to all submitters, and we will look forward to going to the House for question time at 2:00. Thank you.